All right, so welcome back everyone to Pause and Talk, brought to you by Shaw Spotlight. I feel like it's been a million years. It's been a minute since we have been back. Unfortunately, obviously, due to the pandemic, we can't be recording in studio, and it kind of works out for this specifically, this episode. I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Natalia Hansen. Natalia and I met a few years back. We met before the National Animal Welfare Conference via social media, but we actually finally got to meet face to face. And I think the connection too of our obsession with felines really brought us together. Natalia has done so much. She is very busy. Not only does she own her own business, but she runs HOLA, which stands for Humane Outreach for Latin Animals. And she also, in her spare time, which I don't know how she has any, but in her spare time, she works for Humane Canada as the marketing communications manager. She is one of the biggest animal welfare advocates that I personally know, and I'm so excited and grateful to introduce her to everyone today. So please welcome Natalia.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you, Cass, for that beautiful introduction. And I'm here getting my hand bitten by my new dog that I adopted a few weeks ago. And so I'm like, as you're talking, I'm just like,
That's okay. We're all animal lovers, so we're okay with having her join us. So you actually did adopt this lovely girl, right? So what is her name, and how was the adoption process? Let's just start off with that.
On and show your face. So this is Sammy. Sammy is a mutt, clearly. She's probably, I do feel like way somewhere in her DNA, she has some corgi in her, because she's got that corgi type of body. So she's long and short, and the ears. So I had learned about Sammy about December last year. I was in Canada. So I'm in Colombia right now, which is where I'm from, but I live in Canada. I've been for almost 12 years. So I was still in Canada. And this girl I know here in Bogota, which is my home city, does a lot of rescue. And so she sometimes, sends me pictures and cases and stories. And so that was the case with Sammy. And I saw her and I felt like something for her, like I felt a connection. And around that time, I was feeling like, okay, you know what? I think I'm ready to take that step and become a dog mom.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. And every so often I would message her and like, hey, how's the dog? So she was actually found in a hole in the ground with her 4 puppies. So she probably gave birth in there, and she was rescued from there with her 4 puppies. They were all well and healthy. Puppies were adopted out.
Wow.
And then I came to Colombia. She was ready to be spayed, and I'm a huge proponent of spay and neuter, and I know we're going to talk about it. Yeah. So this girl reached out to me and she said, hey, there's a spay neuter campaign. Do you think you can help me sponsor her surgery? I'm like, absolutely, here we go. So she got spayed. And then I met her. She was super sweet. She like jumped up to me right away, super lovely. And I do have a cat. I brought her from Canada. And so I said, okay, I want to take Sammy, but I really want to make sure that she's going to be okay with Cherise, my cat. Yeah. So I brought her home for a trial. The trial lasted 5 seconds. Like, they were okay. Sammy ignored Cherise. Cherise ignored Sammy. So I'm like, okay. She's
never went back. That's how I got my second cat. Yeah, it was a trial. And then she never went back. I was like, she's never going back in the cage. I couldn't picture it. So
that's exactly it.
So
yeah, that's just it.
Let's get further into it. So obviously I mentioned, Natalia, you have so much experience, you have so much going on, but I want to actually talk a little bit about why and how you got involved with animal welfare. So we mentioned about the love for cats that we both share, but I just wanted to know what your kind of thoughts were in your history.
Yeah, thank you. Always was an animal lover, and growing up here in Colombia, it's not uncommon still, unfortunately, to see stray animals. In some cities more than others, of course, in some neighborhoods more than others. but I grew up with seeing that reality, and it was always very heartbreaking for me. I remember as a child, wanting to take them all home, and my mom comforted me saying, "Oh, no, his owner's over there." And I'm like, "I know you're lying to me." So I always, would go to like the closest local bakery and buy a piece of bread to feed the dogs, but my heart was always broken of seeing that reality. So I was growing up thinking, okay, I want to be a vet. I want to be a vet. But I also wanted to study abroad. I wanted to go to either the States or Canada. And the process for going to school is different in those countries versus here in Colombia. So it's way longer to become a vet in Canada, let's say. And so honestly, I was like, I don't want to go to school for 8 years. I really don't. So while I was still here in Colombia, I had a dog back then. He's in heaven now, but he's tattooed here on my arm forever. And I'm crazy, right? So like I would throw birthday parties for him and things like that. And I would invite his doggy friends. And I thought, hey, you know what? My dog is so lucky. He has everything he needs. He doesn't need gifts. So why don't we ask the guests to bring donations for animal rescues and animal shelters? And I think I was about 19 years old or something when I started doing this. And I just loved doing that. Like the energy I felt during the events and donations, receiving them and then giving them to the organization. My soul was on fire. My heart was this big when that happened. So I started really loving that part of the working for animals, like fundraising, awareness, things like that. So fast forward a little bit, I went to Canada and I went to college for veterinary assistance. So that's a 1-year program. Perfect, loved it. That's actually funny enough what I learned about cats, because now I'm a proud crazy cat lady. But before that, I knew nothing about cats. Like nothing is nothing. So when I went to school, I learned about them. And that's when I was like, where have these creatures been all my life? And I think now that's why I'm crazy about cats, because I'm making up for all those years. So I did vet assistant and I started working in the field. This was in Kingston, Ontario. So I worked in veterinary hospitals. Then I moved to Ottawa, continued working in the field. So learning more about animals, animal health, the importance of vaccines, the importance of taking your pets to the vet, all that stuff. And while I had those jobs, I was still involved in doing fundraising. So for instance, in Ottawa, we have the Ottawa Humane Society, and they do the annual walkathon for animals, right? So I would get my coworkers together and we would form a team. And for, I think it was about 3 years in a row when I led the team, we were the veterinary clinic that raised the most money. So I loved I was not afraid of coming up to our clients and say, hey, we're doing this walk. Do you want to donate $5, $10? Like I wasn't afraid of asking people for money for this cause. So I started loving that, right? Like the marketing, fundraising part of things. And I felt like, okay, you know what? I want to go to school again. I've only done college for 1 year. I feel like I need to do more. And I thought the next natural step was to go to school to become a vet tech, which is kind of like the next step. And I applied, I got accepted. And the owner of the clinic where I was working, Dr. Stewart, may he rest in peace, he actually detracted me from doing that. He was my boss and he said, Natalia, no, don't go into vet tech school. Like you have other qualities, you need to do something different, you're creative, you're this, you're that. And I was like, what? Really? What are you talking about?
Me?
Yeah, I was like, but I mean, animals, like, no, I mean, this is just the natural next step. But he really like planted that seed in my brain. And so I started researching like, okay, what else can I do? And long story short, I found the public relations program. So I went into it. And I went into it knowing very well, though, that I wanted to continue working in animal welfare. So I went to college for that program, mainly because I wanted to hone in on those skills that I already had about fundraising.
And your experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I did the program, and then shortly after that, I got a job at the Hamilton Burlington SPCA in Hamilton, Ontario. And to me, I was like, oh my gosh, my dream job, right? Because I'm putting my skills in practice for animal welfare, organizing events, awareness campaigns, promoting adoption, all of that stuff. So and funny enough, at the Hamilton Burlington SPCA is where I met Melissa. I remember you also met Melissa in Montreal when I met you. And Melissa was my boss in Hamilton. She hired me.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how we
And you
co-founded.
created this HOLA.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go right into that. And so obviously I went over what it stands for, obviously the Humane Outreach for Latin Animals. And let's talk a little bit more about that. So you met each other, you guys obviously, she was your boss, you had a great connection, and why the need, and tell me how this kind of all started and what the organization is.
For sure, and Sherry is my cat just walked by. So
I always see her on Instagram.
This is so perfect. See, the girls are here together and they remind each other.
I love it.
Okay, so this started when, let me think, it was 2015, and I was in college for public relations, and I was planning on coming back home to Colombia for the holidays, for Christmas season. And at around that time, we were doing some like volunteer hours and things like that. And I started to think like, hey, I'm gonna feel a lot of guilt going back home just for a vacation, like being a tourist and not doing something to address the problem of pet overpopulation, homelessness, abandonment, etc. So I asked one of my professors, like, hey, if I do a fundraiser for Colombia, does it count for this course? And he's like, yeah, of course, go for it. So I put together a quick fundraiser. I did a dinner. I had a GoFundMe page, all of that. And I think, I honestly can't remember, but I raised about, look at this cat. She's still in the spotlight.
That's good.
Raised, I want to say maybe $2,000, but I'm talking about within about a month. So that was pretty, I was happy with that, especially because when you go from dollars to pesos, which is our currency here, it's significant, right? Like,
no kidding.
To give you an example, you can sponsor a spay or neuter for about $25 Canadian. Like that's not a money for us in Canada. It won't break the bank, right? So I did that, and I came home in December 2015 for the holidays. I got in touch with a couple of rescues. They were, of course, extremely happy because they don't have this kind of help often, right? Someone coming out of the blue, hey, I have some money for you. So then it kind of became something that I did every time I came home. I always did a fundraiser, and my main focus is spaying and neutering. Like so much so that I have it tattooed right here on my arm.
I know you do. I love it.
Yeah. Because it's the only way of preventing pet overpopulation. Yeah, it really, really is. And not just that, but decreasing the chances of our animals getting cancer, longer lifespans, many, many benefits. Yeah. So fast forward a little bit then, and I was working in Hamilton at the SPCA with Melissa as my boss, and she saw me doing these things, right? I came to Colombia, I was doing a fundraiser, she made a donation, that kind of thing. And then in December of 2018, I came to Colombia for a vacation, and she joined me just because. And then I said, hey, why don't we do a fundraiser and we do some work while we're down there? So again, we did that same thing, dinner, GoFundMe, one-on-one donations. We raised some money. And that was the first time that Melissa was doing an international spay neuter campaign. She didn't speak Spanish, and she was still a trooper. And it was a beautiful campaign. And after that, I remember her and I had finished, and we were like, wow, we need to do this again. Yeah. And I was like, dude,
it kind of like it ignited the fire underneath you almost, right? Like it just, everything kind of fell into place. Yeah. I love that. Exactly. I love it.
Yeah. So, and I said, I would do this every single day if I
could. So let's do it.
That's just it. And so at that point, like I said, every time I would come to Colombia, I would do a fundraiser just kind of among my network, friends, etc. But when her and I started thinking like, okay, we need to do this at a larger scale. So we started just brainstorming and writing numbers down. Okay, how many animals do we want to spay neuter? Okay, 5 million, great. So how much money do we need? 10 million, whatever. Yeah. So we started to think, okay, one thing is for me to raise, let's say $2,000, maybe $3,000 on my own. But when our goal was to raise about $10,000, it maybe didn't look as legit if I came as myself, hi, Natalia Hansen, give me $10,000, instead of, hey, I'm Natalia Hansen, the co-founder of da-da-da-da, would you like to support our organization? Yeah. So that's basically how HOLA was born. We said, okay, we need an organization because we need to make it look more legit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it gives people, I mean, it kind of builds that trusting relationship, right? And I think you and I actually talked about that at one of the national animal welfare conferences I've been to. I think it was the first one that you and I actually connected officially. And we were talking because at that time you hadn't officially announced it, but it was in, there was, what's it called, like a seminar, and it was Danny from PetSmart Charities, and so all of us were kind of discussing, and you actually took part in that, and I remember us talking about it, and you said, like, you know, you had a plan, and that you just, it was good for you to you know, figure out how you can, all you want to do is help. Ever since I've met you, that is like the number one thing that even myself and my co-founder of our organization, Nicole, we said, like, there's just, you just have like this ray of sunshine around you, and you just always want to help, and your heart is just so pure. And so I'm just, like, again, I'm just so happy to have you. How does it work with the campaign and your organization? So let's get into that and talk about, you know, how this whole process kind of works.
Yeah, of course. So the main goal of HOLA is to facilitate spay neuter campaigns to begin with, right? Because eventually we do want to get into humane education and other things, but for right now is spay and neutering. So our first campaign was in November of 2019, before the pandemic happened, before all of this craziness happened. Yeah. And basically we want to make our campaigns an enjoyable experience for our volunteers. Mm-hmm. So we usually enlist volunteers from North America, from Canada and the United States, who are obviously animal lovers. They don't necessarily have to have experience working with animals or in the veterinary field. Mm-hmm. If they're trainable, that's great. Why? Because we're not doing the surgeries ourselves. No. We have a team of veterinarians that are local, and they know the community, and they have their own protocols and their own medications, etc. And we leave that part to them because that's a very important part. Yeah. So what we do, what our volunteers do, is we help in the preparation of the animal, right? The recovery of the animal. So after the animal finishes their surgery, they come down to wake up from anesthesia. So we're monitoring them, making sure they're okay, etc. Mm-hmm. And so one of the requirements to volunteer at one of our campaigns is to help us raise the funds to pay for these surgeries, because we want to make this a gift for the community, because the communities that we're serving are low income. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they can't even afford to feed themselves and their families, let alone their animals. Mm-hmm. So even less to pay for a veterinary service like spay or neutering or vaccinations. And again, we work with the local team, and they help us get these surgeries at the lowest cost possible. It's approximately 25 Canadian dollars, which, as I was saying earlier, doesn't break the bank to us, right? Like, let's think about how much money we spend at Tim Hortons every week, right? So yeah, basically we call them spaycations, because it's a little bit of course, the work, the spay neutering campaign, and then a little bit of vacation. Mm-hmm. On that particular campaign in November of 2019, we did sightseeing. We did it in the beautiful city of Cartagena, which is on the coast of Colombia. So right on the beach, historic, beautiful, gorgeous, like you don't get tired of taking photos of that beautiful city. And so we made sure that we incorporate our own culture, because again, we want to make this an enriching experience for our volunteers. We had beach time as well. Yeah, it's really great.
Before the pandemic, we actually talked about myself and my co-founder. So we actually discussed you know, us joining and getting involved and doing this. And then unfortunately the pandemic happened. And so I want to discuss that. We're completely over time, but you know what, hopefully we'll just be able to cut some stuff out here. Don't know how, but we'll figure it out. But I want to talk about that because obviously with the pandemic, I mean, life has changed for everyone. So this has had to been put on hold. Like how is this kind of working? Are you still kind of, are you guys doing anything? Are you able to do anything? How is this kind of working right now?
Yeah, so definitely, you know, the pandemic affected many of us in many ways. And for HOLA specifically, our first campaign was such a success in November of 2019. We exceeded our goal. Our goal was to help, I think it was 400 animals, and we ended up doing about 440 surgeries. Wow. So, and then there was a need for more. We felt bad because we had to reject people. We had to say, I'm sorry, we're full. We've given out all of our surgeries today. So we realized like, whoa, we need to come back. Clearly, this is just the beginning. And we were super excited because for 2020, we had planned out 2 campaigns. So one was going to happen that summer, and it was going to be only for cats. And I think that's the one where you and Nicole were interested in coming because you both love cats, of course.
Yeah.
Then, the pandemic happened in March. So we were like, okay, we're going to have to cancel July. Oh, but it's going to be fine for the other one.
Yeah, right? July and November. July and November.
Yeah.
We talked about it. Yeah.
Exactly. So the other campaign was going to be in November, and we were going to make that month like our staple month. Like we said, okay, every November, every year, we're going to come back and we're going to do 400 animals, and it was going to be amazing. But then, of course, things didn't get better with the pandemic, and we had to cancel that as well. Yeah. It was definitely, I won't lie, it was very, very disappointing for Melissa and I. And we knew it wasn't our fault. It was something that was completely out of our control. And, the pandemic has presented a lot of financial challenges for a lot of people. So we decided, hey, you know what, maybe it's not the greatest time to ask people for donations. We really want to be very mindful of people's situations right now. A lot of people lost jobs or had to cut down their hours or, many things.
The world changed.
So 2020, exactly. 2020 was really a quiet year for us in that aspect, and definitely very, very sad for sure. And then this year, especially with me coming here, I started talking again with the community in Cartagena, and one of the ladies who is an incredible, incredible animal advocate, and she organizes campaigns probably about once a month or as often as she can. And we've actually recently, I mean last weekend, we helped fund a campaign that she had. I think it was just for cats. And I talked to her and I said, listen, clearly we can't travel just yet. I cannot responsibly ask volunteers from Canada or the States to come down to Colombia, but we still want to help. Like, we can't have our hands tied just because we can't travel. So with Melissa, we're thinking of ways of how can we still help without us being physically there. Of course, that's half of the fun. Obviously, I won't lie. But we can still raise money, right? We can still have a GoFundMe page. We can still ask our network for donations. And you know what? Some people may not be able to donate, and that's fine. We totally understand. But even if someone donates $5 and somebody else donates $5 and somebody else, you know what I mean?
It adds up. Yeah. Well, obviously, I hope that once, this lovely pandemic is a little bit more under control and things kind of calm down all around. That's still one of my goals is to join you and just to help out in this amazing, incredible organization. I love everything that you stand for, and I love what the organization represents. And so if there is someone who wants to get involved, obviously you can't right now because of the travel restrictions, and we understand that. But for future reference, if someone would like to get involved with HOLA, how do they get involved and what could they do? How do they contact you to help?
Absolutely. Great question. So we are on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. And on Facebook, we are as Humane Outreach for Latin Animals, HOLA. Our Instagram account is HOLA for Animals. I won't lie, it's been very neglected within the past year because we haven't really done any campaigns.
Okay,
but we are there. If we get a message or something, we'll definitely respond. And then we have our website, which is www.holaforanimals.com. And our email is hello@HOLA, HOLA foranimals.com as well. So many ways to get in touch. And I've had people recently getting in touch and just saying, hey, I want to help.
Yeah.
And I replied, thank you so much. I'll definitely keep you in mind. But right now we're not doing anything, but I'll definitely keep you in mind.
Keep you in mind. Well, you guys got to check out the website is absolutely incredible. It's really cool to see. I think the difference of, a spay and neuter that we're kind of used to seeing here in Northwestern Ontario, and then spay and neutering, in your country. I think it's just beautiful though to see all the animals, and the need for it is so extreme. And I think that we can all help out a little bit. So obviously I'll link everything so people can get in touch. And you can also send an email. There's a volunteer link on the website, which I'm pretty sure I filled out already, but you can send an email, and obviously you're going to talk to Natalia or her amazing co-founder, and you know, you can hopefully make plans if you guys can help in any way. Obviously the GoFundMe page is amazing, or there's tons of stuff to do, and even maybe supplies, you know, there's definitely options here. So Natalia, I want to thank you so much. I know that we are so over time, and I don't even care because I am so happy. We just, you know what, I love learning about anything to do with animals. I love humane education. You and I very strongly agree with that. I think it's very important, and this is just another opportunity to help animals and to get the word out there that there is more things outside of, you know, Northwestern Ontario going on. And, you know, so if we can help in any way, we definitely will. So I hope this makes an impact, even small or big, of any size. I hope it helps. So yeah, so thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of Paws and Talk. We will be back in studio one day in a blue moon. I don't know when it's going to happen, but thank you for your guys' time, and we'll see you again. Bye, guys.